Christmas Eve at JFK Airport. It was supposed to be a simple flight home for the holidays. But for 17-year-old Maya, it became a nightmare of racial profiling and public humiliation. Accused of stealing a first-class ticket and a black card she couldn't possibly own, she was detained, mocked, and threatened with arrest by a power-hungry supervisor who thought she had an easy target. But that supervisor made one fatal mistake. She didn't check who issued that black card. She didn't know that the man landing his Geox 50 private jet on the tarmac outside wasn't just Maya's father. He was the man who owned the airline's debt, and he was coming for his daughter. The air inside JFK's Terminal 4 was thick with the scent of cinnamon lattes and the frantic energy of Christmas Eve. Outside, the tarmac was a sheet of grey sleet, but inside, 17-year-old Maya Sterling adjusted her noise-cancelling headphones and tried to make herself invisible. She wasn't trying to hide because she had done anything wrong. She was trying to hide because she was tired. She had just finished a grueling semester at a boarding school in Switzerland and had flown into New York to catch a connecting flight to Aspen. She was wearing a baggy, vintage Yale sweatshirt, grey sweatpants, and worn-out Converse sneakers. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she clutched a beaten-up leather backpack. To the untrained eye, she looked like any other tired teenager. To Beatrice Gower, the gate supervisor for Aerolux Airways, she looked like a problem. Beatrice stood at the entrance to the Prestige First Class lounge, a clipboard clutched to her chest like a shield. She prided herself on keeping the lounge exclusive. In Beatrice's mind, exclusive had a very specific look, and a young black girl in sweatpants didn't fit the aesthetic. Maya approached the frosted glass doors. She just wanted a bottle of water and a quiet corner to FaceTime her dad before the flight. She reached into her pocket and pulled out her boarding pass, a sleek, gold-edged ticket indicating seat 1A. As she stepped toward the scanner, a hand shot out, blocking her path. "Excuse me," Beatrice said, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness that didn't reach her cold, narrow eyes. "The economy terminal is down the hall to the left. This is for Prestige members only." Maya blinked, pulling down her headphones. "I know. I have a ticket." She held out the pass. Beatrice didn't even look at the name. She just looked at the ink. Seat 1A. Her lip curled slightly. "Honey," Beatrice said, loud enough for the businessman behind Maya to hear. "I don't know where you found this, or who you took it from, but first class is full, and we have a zero-tolerance policy for forged passes." "Forged?" Maya frowned, her grip tightening on her phone. "I didn't forge anything. My father bought this ticket. Check the system." "The system is for paying customers," Beatrice snapped, dropping the sweet act. She stepped closer, invading Maya's personal space. "Now, step aside before I call security. You're holding up the line for actual priority passengers." The businessman behind Maya, a tall man in a bespoke suit checking his Rolex, cleared his throat. "Is there a problem here?" "Just a little confusion, Mr. Henderson." Beatrice beamed at him, her demeanor instantly shifting to servitude. "This young lady is lost. Please go right ahead." "I'm not lost," Maya said firmly, stepping back in front of the scanner. She wasn't aggressive, but she had been raised by Darius Sterling, a man who negotiated billion-dollar mergers for breakfast. She knew how to stand her ground. "Scan the ticket. If it's invalid, I'll leave. If it's valid, you owe me an apology." Beatrice's face turned a blotchy shade of red. The audacity. In her 10 years at Aerolux, she had never been challenged like this, certainly not by a teenager who looked like she shopped at a thrift store. "You want me to scan it?" Beatrice hissed. "Fine. And when it beeps red, I'm not just kicking you out. I'm having you detained for fraud." Beatrice snatched the ticket from Maya's hand and slapped it onto the scanner with aggressive force. Beep! Beep! Green light! The screen on the podium flashed. "Welcome, Ms. Sterling. Prestige elite status." Maya raised an eyebrow. Green. "Can I go in now?" The silence that followed was deafening. Beatrice stared at the screen. The machine had to be broken. There was no way. Prestige elite status was reserved for the top 0.1% of their flyers, CEOs, celebrities, diplomats. Not girls in sweatpants. "It's a glitch," Beatrice muttered, her panic turning into doubling down. She couldn't lose face in front of Mr. Henderson and the growing line of wealthy travelers. "You probably hacked the QR code. We've had warnings about kids doing this with apps." "Are you serious?" Maya asked, incredulous. "It's a valid ticket." "Security!" Beatrice shouted, waving over two uniformed officers who had been chatting near the duty-free shop. "I have a passenger attempting to breach the secure lounge with a manipulated boarding pass." Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. This was escalating fast. She reached for her phone. "I'm calling my dad." "Oh, no, you don't," Beatrice said, signaling the officers. "Confiscate the phone. It's evidence. She likely has the hacking software on it." "You can't take my phone," Maya cried out as a burly officer grabbed her wrist. "Watch me," Beatrice sneered. "It's Christmas Eve, sweetheart. The police are busy. By the time they sort this out, you'll be sitting in a holding cell, and I'll be enjoying my holiday bonus for catching a fraudster." Maya struggled as the officer pried the iPhone from her hand. "My name is Maya Sterling. My father is Darius Sterling. If you check the name—" "I don't care if your father is the Pope," Beatrice spat. "Get her out of my sight. Put her in the holding room in the back office. I'll deal with the paperwork after the rush." As Maya was dragged away, humiliated, eyes burning with tears she refused to shed, she saw Beatrice turn to the line of wealthy passengers, smoothing her skirt. "So sorry for the disturbance, ladies and gentlemen. We have to be vigilant these days. You never know who's trying to sneak in." Maya was shoved into a small, windowless room behind the check-in counters. The door slammed shut and the lock clicked. She was alone. No phone, no ticket, and nobody knew where she was. Except Beatrice had made one critical error. She hadn't seen the notification on Maya's lock screen just before the officer turned the phone off. It was a text from Dad. "Landing in 10 minutes. The pilot says the headwinds were rough. I'll meet you at the lounge entrance. Love you, kiddo." 30 minutes passed in the holding room. It was a sterile, cold box with a metal table and 2 plastic chairs. The walls were covered in outdated safety posters. Maya sat, her knees pulled to her chest, breathing deeply to keep her panic at bay. She knew who her father was. Darius Sterling wasn't just a CEO. He was the founder of Sterling Horizon Capital, a private equity firm that specialized in distressed assets. He bought failing companies, turned them around, and sold them for billions. He was a man who moved mountains with a whisper. But right now, he was just a dad waiting for a daughter who hadn't shown up. Back at the Prestige Lounge, the rush had died down. Beatrice Gower was feeling smug. She had protected the lounge. She poured herself a glass of complimentary champagne, strictly against the rules, but who was going to tell, and leaned against the reception desk. Her colleague, a younger agent named Jason, looked nervous. "Beatrice, are you sure about that girl? The system said elite status. It didn't look like a glitch." "Jason, you're naive," Beatrice scoffed, taking a sip. "Kids these days use AI to spoof codes. If she was really elite, she'd be wearing Gucci, not Gap. Besides, if she was really important, her parents would have booked a private escort." "I don't know," Jason muttered, looking at the confiscated phone sitting on the counter. "It's been buzzing non-stop." "Let it buzz," Beatrice said dismissively. Probably her little friends wondering why she isn't on the plane. Suddenly, the automatic doors at the lounge entrance slid open with a smooth whoosh. A man walked in. The atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. You didn't need to know who he was to know he was someone. He was over 6 feet tall, wearing a charcoal wool coat over a midnight blue suit that cost more than Beatrice's car. He had a closely trimmed beard and eyes that scanned the room with the precision of a predator drone. He didn't look angry. He looked focused. He walked straight to the desk. He didn't wait for Beatrice to greet him. "I'm looking for my daughter," he said. His voice was a low baritone, calm but carrying a weight that made the air feel heavy. Maya Sterling. She was supposed to be here 30 minutes ago. Beatrice set her champagne glass down, hiding it behind a computer monitor. She put on her customer service smile. "Sir, unfortunately, we don't have anyone by that name in the lounge. Perhaps she's at the general boarding gate?" "She's not," the man said. He pulled out his own phone. Her GPS last pinged at this exact location 20 minutes ago. Then her phone went dead. He looked at Beatrice. "Where is she?" Beatrice's smile faltered. "Sir, I can't give out passenger information. If she's not here, she's not here." The man's eyes drifted down to the counter. There, partially hidden by a stack of brochures, was a phone. A phone with a distinctive sticker on the case, a small, hand-painted sunflower. Darius Sterling reached out. Beatrice tried to cover it with her hand. "That is airline property." Darius moved faster than she expected. He didn't touch her, but he firmly removed the brochures, revealing the phone. He picked it up. "This is Maya's," he said. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Why do you have my daughter's phone? And why is it turned off?" Beatrice swallowed hard. She decided to go on the offensive. "Sir, that phone belongs to a passenger who was detained for attempted fraud. She tried to breach security with a fake ticket. She is currently in holding awaiting the authorities." Darius stared at her. For a second, he looked confused. Then he looked at Jason, who was trembling. "Fraud?" Darius repeated the word as if it tasted sour. "You detained Maya Sterling for fraud?" "She had a manipulated ticket," Beatrice insisted, her voice rising. "And she was belligerent. We have zero tolerance for scammers." Darius didn't yell. He didn't scream. He simply reached into his inner coat pocket and pulled out a wallet. He extracted a card. It wasn't a credit card. It was a heavy, matte black metal card with a small diamond chip embedded in the corner. He placed it gently on the counter. "I bought that ticket," Darius said softly, "using this." Beatrice looked at the card. It was the Centurion Infinite. It was an invite-only card issued by the bank that owned the airline's credit partnership. There were maybe 50 people in the world who had one. "Now," Darius said, leaning in close, "I'm going to ask you one more time. Open that door, bring me my daughter. And then you are going to call your CEO, Mr. Vance." "Mr. Vance?" Beatrice squeaked. I can't just call the CEO." "That's fine," Darius said, unlocking his phone. "I have him on speed dial. We were supposed to play golf on Tuesday." Beatrice's world began to crumble. The blood drained from her face, leaving her pale and clammy. "Sir, I was just following protocol," she stammered. "You profiled a child on Christmas Eve," Darius said, his voice cutting like a razor. "You stole her property. You imprisoned her." He held up his phone. He had dialed a number. "Put it on speaker," Darius commanded. Beatrice froze. "Hello? Darius?" A voice boomed from the phone. It was undeniably Richard Vance, the CEO of Aerolux. "Merry Christmas. To what do I owe the pleasure? You land okay? Richard, Darius said, his eyes never leaving Beatrice's face. I'm at JFK Terminal 4. Your staff have arrested my daughter. Silence on the line. Then a roar. They did what? A supervisor named Darius glanced at her name tag. Beatrice Gower. She claimed Maya's ticket, the one I bought through your personal concierge desk, was fake. She's locked my 17-year-old in a back room. Darius! Richard Vance's voice was trembling with rage. Put her on the phone, now! Darius shoved the phone toward Beatrice. It's for you. Beatrice's hand trembled so violently that she almost dropped the sleek, expensive smartphone. The voice on the other end was not just loud, it was the kind of cold, corporate fury that ended careers with a single sentence. Beatrice, CEO Richard Halloway's voice crackled through the speakerphone, distorted slightly, but unmistakably powerful. I am looking at our internal logs right now. I see a code red override on a VIP account. Did you, or did you not, forcibly detain a passenger with prestige elite status? Beatrice looked at Darius Sterling. His face was a mask of stone. He wasn't looking at the phone. He was looking at the locked door behind her desk. Sir, Mr. Halloway, Beatrice stammered, sweat beading on her upper lip. The girl looked suspicious. She was wearing sweatpants. She didn't fit the profile. I thought she had stolen the ticket. I was protecting the brand. Protecting the brand? Halloway let out a dry, mirthless laugh. You just detained the daughter of the man whose private equity firm owns 40% of our outstanding operational debt. Do you have any idea what Darius Sterling can do to this airline before lunch? He could ground our entire fleet with a single injunction. Beatrice felt the blood drain from her legs. She grabbed the edge of the desk to steady herself. She looked at Darius with new eyes. He wasn't just a rich dad. He was the shark that swam in the waters her bosses feared. Give the phone back to Mr. Sterling, Halloway commanded. And Beatrice, if that girl has so much as a scratch on her, do not bother coming in tomorrow, or ever. Beatrice handed the phone back to Darius with a shaking hand. She looked like a ghost. Darius took the device and put it to his ear. Richard, I'm done talking. I'm getting my daughter. Stay on the line. I want you to hear exactly what your customer service looks like. He didn't put the phone away. He placed it in his breast pocket, the camera lens facing out, recording everything. He looked at Beatrice. The key, he said. It wasn't a question. Beatrice fumbled with a ring of keys clipped to her belt. Her fingers were slippery with sweat. She detached a small silver key and tried to hand it to him, but Darius ignored her hand. Open it, he said. You locked her in. You let her out. The walk to the back room felt like a funeral march for Beatrice. The lounge was silent. Every wealthy passenger, every waiter, every cleaner had stopped what they were doing to watch. Jason, the young employee who had tried to warn her, stood in the corner, shaking his head. He knew what was coming. Beatrice unlocked the heavy metal door. It swung open with a groan. Inside, the room was stark. The fluorescent light buzzed ominously. Maya was sitting at the metal table, her head buried in her arms. She had her headphones on around her neck, unmoving. Maya, Darius's voice cracked. The titan of industry, the man who terrified CEOs, sounded terrifyingly vulnerable. Maya looked up. Her eyes were red and puffy. She had clearly been crying, but had wiped her face dry when she heard the key. When she saw her father, her brave face crumbled. Dad, she whispered. Darius was across the room in 2 strides. He pulled her out of the chair and wrapped her in a hug so tight it lifted her off the ground. Maya buried her face in his wool coat, shaking. I told them, Maya sobbed, her voice muffled against his chest. I told them to check the name. They took my phone. They laughed at me. Darius stroked her hair, his eyes scanning the room. He saw the cold metal chair. He saw the lack of water. He saw the security camera in the corner, blinking a red light. "It's okay," Darius said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "I'm here. You're safe." He pulled back and looked at her. "Did they hurt you?" "They grabbed my arm," Maya sniffled, rubbing her left wrist. "When they took the phone. It hurts a little." Darius looked at her wrist. There were faint red marks. Fingerprints. That was it. The switch flipped. Darius turned around. Beatrice was standing in the doorway, wringing her hands, looking like a child who had broken a vase. "Mr. Sterling," Beatrice began, her voice high and pitchy. I can bring her some sparkling cider, or perhaps some truffles. We can upgrade you both to the private suite on the plane." Darius walked toward her. He didn't rush. He walked with the slow, inevitable momentum of a landslide. He stopped inches from her face. "You put your hands on my child," Darius said. "It was security," Beatrice yelped, backing up into the hallway. "I just ordered it. It wasn't me personally." "You are the supervisor," Darius said. "You gave the order. Under New York penal law, unlawful imprisonment is a crime. Assaulting a minor is a crime. You didn't just make a customer service mistake, Ms. Gower. You committed a felony." He took Maya's hand. "Come on, sweetie. We're leaving this room." As they walked back out into the main lounge, the atmosphere had changed. It wasn't just silent anymore. It was hostile. The other passengers had heard enough. Mr. Henderson, the businessman who had been behind Maya in line, stepped forward. He was holding his own phone up, recording. "I saw it," Henderson said, his voice booming. "I saw her grab the girl. I saw her mock her clothes. I'm willing to testify to that." "Me too," a woman in a Chanel suit chimed in from the bar. She called her a fraud just because of how she looked. It was disgusting. Beatrice looked around, panic setting in. The herd was turning on her. She had spent years curating this lounge for these exact people, thinking she was their gatekeeper. Now they were looking at her like she was the trash that needed to be taken out. "Please," Beatrice begged, looking at Darius. "It's Christmas Eve. I have 2 kids. I need this job. I made a mistake. Please don't ruin my life over a misunderstanding." Darius stopped. He looked at Maya, then back at Beatrice. "You have kids?" Darius asked. Beatrice nodded frantically, tears streaming down her face, ruining her heavy makeup. "Yes. Yes, 2 boys, please." "Then you should know better," Darius said coldly. "You didn't care about my child's Christmas. You didn't care about her fear. You only care now because you got caught." Darius turned to the lounge entrance, where 2 police officers, real Port Authority police, not airport security, were jogging in. "Over here," Darius called out. "Officers!" Beatrice screamed, pointing at Darius. "This man is threatening me. He's disturbing the peace." The officers didn't look at Darius. They looked at Beatrice. One of them, a sergeant with a weary face, held up a radio. "Beatrice Gower?" the sergeant asked. "Yes. Help me." "Ma'am, we received a call from the CEO of Aerolux, Mr. Richard Halloway. He claims you are holding a minor hostage against airline protocol and have violated federal aviation security regulations by falsifying a security threat." Beatrice's mouth fell open. "Turn around and place your hands behind your back," the sergeant said, unclipping his handcuffs. The sight of Beatrice Gower being handcuffed in the middle of the Prestige Lounge was something the passengers would talk about for years. She was sobbing, screaming about her tenure, blaming Jason, blaming the glitchy scanner. As they led her away, Darius didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He was focused on damage control for Maya. "Are you okay to fly?" he asked her gently, wiping a stray tear from her cheek. Maya took a deep breath. She was shaken, but she was a sterling. She straightened her posture. I want to go home, Dad. I don't want to stay in this airport another second. We're not taking the commercial flight, Darius said, glancing at the departure board. I'm not giving this airline another dime of revenue today. But we aren't leaving just yet. I have one more thing to do. He guided her toward the large glass windows overlooking the tarmac. The snow was falling harder now, coating the planes in white. Parked near the gate was the massive Aerolux Boeing 777 that Maya was supposed to board. But parked further out, on the private strip, was a sleek black Gulfstream G650. Darius's jet. We'll take my plane, Darius said. But first, we need to have a meeting. With who? Maya asked. With the people who allowed this culture to fester, Darius said. He pulled out his phone again. Richard? You still there? I'm here, Darius. CEO Holloway's voice sounded exhausted. I heard the arrest. I'm truly sorry. We will be issuing a public apology immediately. We'll refund your ticket, obviously, and offer a significant settlement to avoid litigation. A settlement? Darius scoffed. Richard, you know I don't need your money. I have more money in my couch cushions than your Q4 profit margins. Then what do you want? Holloway asked. I want you to meet me. Now. Darius, I'm in Connecticut with my family. It's Christmas Eve. And I'm at JFK with a traumatized daughter, Darius snapped. You have a helicopter. Get here in 20 minutes, or I call my legal team and we initiate a hostile takeover of your debt restructuring plan. If I pull my capital backing, Aerolux goes bankrupt by January 1st. There was a long silence on the line. Then, a defeated sigh. I'll be there in 20. Maya looked at her dad, eyes wide. You'd buy the airline? I don't want the airline, Darius muttered. It's a logistical nightmare. But I want them to think I'll take it. It's the only way things change. While they waited, the lounge manager, a man who had been hiding in his office during the altercation, emerged with a silver platter of chocolates and water. He was trembling. Mr. Sterling, Ms. Sterling, please, sit. Can I get you anything? Darius ignored the chocolates. I want the security logs for the last 6 months. I want to know how many other random checks Beatrice Gower performed. And I want to know the demographic of every person she stopped. The manager paled. Sir, that's confidential employee data. And I'm the man about to own your boss, Darius said calmly. Print it. 20 minutes later, a sleek corporate helicopter buzzed over the terminal and landed on the helipad. Moments later, Richard Holloway burst into the lounge, flanked by 2 breathless assistants. He wasn't wearing a suit. He was in a cashmere sweater and jeans, looking like a man dragged away from a holiday dinner. He walked straight to Darius and extended a hand. Darius didn't shake it. Richard, Darius nodded. This is Maya. Richard turned to Maya. To his credit, he looked genuinely ashamed. He was a father too. Maya, I am deeply sorry. What happened to you is inexcusable. Beatrice has been terminated effective immediately, and we will cooperate fully with the police investigation. That's a start, Darius said, leaning back in the leather chair. But Beatrice is just a symptom, a weed. The soil is the problem. Darius tossed a stack of papers onto the coffee table. It was the log the manager had printed out. I took a look while waiting for you, Darius said. In the last year, Beatrice Gower has flagged 42 passengers for suspicious tickets. 40 of them were people of color. 30 of them were under the age of 25. Richard picked up the papers, his eyes scanning the data. His face darkened. I didn't know. You didn't look, Darius corrected him. You let a petty tyrant run your flagship lounge because she kept the riffraff out. Well, today she kept out a future shareholder. What do you want, Darius? Richard asked again. I want 3 things. Darius held up 3 fingers. 1. You are going to overhaul your entire security training program. I want bias training mandatory for every employee, from the janitor to the pilots. And I want an independent auditor to oversee it. My firm will select the auditor. Done, Richard said immediately. 2. You are going to create a scholarship fund in Maya's name. The Maya Sterling Excellence in Aviation Scholarship. Full rides for underprivileged minority students who want to be pilots or engineers. And you're going to fund it with $10 million, initial deposit. Richard winced at the number, but he nodded. 10 million. Fine. We can structure it over 5 years. Up front, Darius said. Tomorrow. Okay, up front. And the 3rd? Darius stood up. He walked over to the window and looked out at his jet, then back at the Aerolux plane. 3. You're going to fire the regional director who hired Beatrice and ignored the previous complaints about her. I saw 3 formal complaints in her file that were marked unsubstantiated by a Director Miller. He protected her. He goes too. Richard rubbed his temples. Miller has been with us for 20 years. He's powerful. The union will fight it. Then tell the union they can explain to the press why they are defending a man who enables racial profiling of minors, Darius said. Or I can tell them. Richard sighed. He looked at Maya, who was watching the negotiation with fascination. She was seeing her father in his element, using his power not to bully, but to bulldoze a path for justice. Fine, Richard said. Miller is gone. Good. Darius buttoned his coat. Come on, Maya, let's go home. But as they turned to leave, the lounge doors opened again. It wasn't the police. It wasn't staff. It was a woman in a sharp blazer holding a microphone, followed by a cameraman. The local news. Apparently the live stream from Mr. Henderson and the other passengers had gone viral. Airport Karen was trending #1 on Twitter globally. The press had descended on JFK. Mr. Sterling! Mr. Sterling! The reporter shouted, shoving the microphone towards them. Is it true you're buying Aerolux? Did your daughter really get assaulted by staff? We have reports that the police just arrested the supervisor. Darius paused. He looked at Maya. Do you want to talk to them? Maya hesitated. She was tired. She was hungry, but she remembered the way Beatrice had looked at her. Like she was dirt, like she didn't belong. She thought about the 40 other people in that file who hadn't had a billionaire dad to save them. Maya stepped forward, moving out from behind her father's protection. I'll talk to them, she said. The snow was swirling violently around the tarmac now, a white curtain closing off the rest of the world. But under the harsh glare of the news cameras, Maya Sterling stood exposed. The reporter, a sharp-eyed woman from Channel 4, named Jessica Reed, thrust the microphone forward. Behind the camera, the red live light was blinking. Millions of people were watching. Maya, Jessica asked, her voice modulating to a tone of practiced sympathy. You're 17. It's Christmas Eve. Can you tell us exactly what was going through your mind when you were locked in that room? Darius moved to step in, to shield her, but Maya gently touched his arm. I got this, Dad, her eyes said. She looked directly into the camera lens. She didn't shout. She didn't cry. She spoke with a terrifying calmness that belied her age. I was thinking about my transcript, Maya said softly. The wind whipped a strand of hair across her face, but she didn't flinch. I was thinking about how I have a 4.0 GPA. I was thinking about how I volunteer at the animal shelter on weekends. I was thinking about how I've never stolen a candy bar, let alone a plane ticket." She paused, letting the silence hang heavy in the air. "And I realized," she continued, her voice gaining strength, "that to the woman who locked me up, none of that mattered. She didn't see my grades. She didn't see my ticket. She saw my skin, and she saw my hoodie, and she decided I was a criminal. She decided I didn't belong in her world. She stripped me of my dignity because she felt powerful. And the scariest part isn't that she did it. It's that she felt safe doing it. She knew the system would back her up." Maya looked at the Aerolux logo on the terminal building behind her. "My dad is here now," she said. "He can save me. But what about the girl who doesn't have a CEO for a father? Who saves her? That's why I'm speaking. Not for me, but for the next girl they try to break." "Cut!" the cameraman yelled. But it was too late. The clip was already ripping through the internet. Within 10 minutes, it had 5 million views on TikTok. The hashtag #NotAfAeroLuxRacism was trending higher than Water Sauce a Merry Christmas. Darius wrapped his arm around her shoulders. "I'm proud of you. Now, let's get out of here." They boarded the Gulfstream G650. The contrast was jarring. Minutes ago, Maya was in a cold, metal detention room. Now, she was sinking into cream-colored leather seats, handed a warm towel by a flight attendant. But she couldn't relax. She pulled out her iPad and watched the world burn. The internet wasn't just mad. It was vengeful. The internet detectives had gone to work. Within an hour, they had found Beatrice Gower's Facebook page. They found posts from 3 years ago, where she ranted about certain people ruining her neighborhood. They found a video of her screaming at a barista for getting her order wrong. The narrative that she was just a strict employee crumbled instantly. She was revealed as a bully, but the karma wasn't done. It was about to climb the ladder. Back inside the terminal, in the executive offices hidden away from the passengers, Director Caldwell was pacing his office. Caldwell was the regional director who had protected Beatrice for years. He was the one Darius had demanded be fired. He was a man who looked like he was made of grease and expensive suits. He was on the phone with his union rep. "They can't fire me," Caldwell shouted, pouring himself a scotch. "I have tenure. I didn't lock the girl up. Beatrice did. I'm the victim here." "The CEO promised Sterling you'd be gone," the rep said on the other end. "Sterling is bluffing," Caldwell scoffed. "He's a finance guy. He'll make a fuss, get his settlement, and fly away to Aspen. By next week, this will all blow over. People have short memories. I'll just issue a statement condemning Beatrice. I'll throw her to the wolves. It's her or me." Caldwell sat down at his computer and began typing a press release. "Aerolux is shocked and appalled by the rogue actions of a single employee, Beatrice Gower. Her behavior does not reflect the values of management or the regional director." He hit send. He smiled. He thought he had just saved his career by scapegoating his loyal subordinate. He didn't know that Darius Sterling had Wi-Fi on his jet. 30,000 feet in the air, Darius's phone pinged. He read Caldwell's press release. His eyes narrowed. "He called her a rogue employee," Darius muttered to Maya. "He's trying to wash his hands of it." "Can he do that?" Maya asked. "He can try," Darius said, opening his laptop. "But he forgot one thing. I own the debt, and I have friends in very low places." Darius didn't call the CEO this time. He called a forensic accountant named Victor, a man who specialized in finding things people wanted hidden. "Victor," Darius said. "The regional director of Aerolux, a man named Caldwell. I want his emails. I want his internal memos. I want to know every time Beatrice Gower was reported, and exactly what he said in response." "Give me 20 minutes," Victor replied. Darius sat back and sipped his sparkling water. Maya, watch closely. This is how you don't just win a fight. This is how you end the war. The flight to Aspen was short, but by the time they landed, the landscape of Aerolux Airways had changed forever. Victor had delivered. As the Gulfstream taxied to the private hangar in Aspen, Darius's printer on the jet began to whir. It spat out 3 distinct email chains from Director Caldwell's inbox. Email 1, dated 2 years ago. From HR Department to Director Caldwell. Subject, complaint regarding Beatrice Gower. Summary, a passenger claims Ms. Gower used racial slurs during a dispute over baggage. Witness statements attached. Caldwell's reply, bury it. Beatrice hits her sales targets for upgrades. The passenger was probably just looking for a free voucher. Mark it as unsubstantiated and close the file. Email 2, dated 1 year ago. From Junior Agent Jason to Director Caldwell. Subject, concerns about profiling. Summary, Ms. Gower is targeting young minority passengers for random security screenings at a rate of 500% higher than policy. Caldwell's reply, Jason, if you want a future at this company, you will focus on your job and stop monitoring your superiors. Beatrice keeps the lounge exclusive. That is what our elite clients pay for. Do not email me about this again. Darius held the papers. They were smoking guns. Caldwell hadn't just ignored the problem, he had actively authorized it. He had codified racism as a business strategy because he thought it kept the lounge exclusive. He's done, Darius said. Are you going to send them to the police? Maya asked. Eventually, Darius said. But first, I'm going to send them to the one group of people Caldwell fears more than the police. Who? The board of directors, Darius smiled grimly, and the shareholders. Darius drafted an email. He attached the documents. He copied the entire board of directors of Aerolux, the CEO, Richard Halloway, and for good measure, the editor-in-chief of the New York Times. The subject line was simple. The rot at the top. He hit send just as the jet engines powered down. Christmas morning, Maya woke up in their Aspen chalet. The smell of pine and wood smoke filled the air. It was a beautiful, peaceful morning. But for Director Caldwell, it was Armageddon. Caldwell had woken up feeling confident. He had checked the news and saw that Beatrice was still the main villain. He poured his coffee and turned on the TV, expecting to see the weather report. Instead, he saw his own face. Breaking news, the anchor said. Leaked emails reveal a systemic cover-up at Aerolux Airways. Regional Director Caldwell implicated in authorizing racial profiling policies. Caldwell dropped his coffee mug. It shattered on the floor, splashing hot liquid over his slippers. His phone began to ring. It was the CEO. Don't bother coming in, Halloway screamed so loud the speaker distorted. You're fired, for cause, no severance, no pension, and our legal team is already drafting a suit against you for negligence to recoup the losses from the stock drop. Richard, please, Caldwell begged. It was just business. I was protecting the bottom line. You destroyed the bottom line, Halloway roared. The stock is down 12% this morning. Darius Sterling just bought a massive block of shares at the dip. He's practically calling the shots now. Get out of my company. Caldwell slumped onto his kitchen floor. It was over. The tenure, the bonus, the retirement, gone. But the karma wasn't finished with the bystanders either. Remember Mr. Henderson, the businessman in the lounge who had initially stood by while Beatrice harassed Maya, only speaking up once the tide turned? The internet had found him too. In the video, before he stepped in, he was clearly heard saying, "Is there a problem here?" in a tone that suggested Maya was the annoyance. He was seen checking his watch, annoyed by the delay caused by a teenager pleading for help. Henderson was a partner at a high-profile law firm. By Christmas afternoon, his firm's Twitter account was flooded. Justice for Maya. Why does your partner, Mr. Henderson, stand by while kids get profiled? Is this how he treats his clients? Fire Henderson. The firm issued a statement at 2:07 p.m. We are reviewing the conduct of our partner. At 4:08 p.m., Mr. Henderson has been placed on indefinite administrative leave pending an investigation into his conduct and values. He hadn't even been the villain, just apathetic. But in the court of karma, apathy in the face of injustice was a crime too. Back in Aspen, Darius and Maya sat by the fire. "Did you see?" Darius asked, looking at his tablet. "Caldwell is out. Aerolux stock is in freefall, which is good for me because I'm buying it up. By next week, I'll have enough voting power to install a new board." "And Beatrice?" Maya asked. "Arraigned this morning," Darius said. "Bail set at $50,000. She doesn't have it. She's spending Christmas in Rikers Island." It was a harsh reality, but it was the reality she had chosen when she decided to lock a child in a room on Christmas Eve. "I feel kind of bad," Maya admitted, looking at the fire. "Not for her, but it's just so much destruction." "You didn't cause the destruction, Maya," Darius said firmly. "You just turned on the light. The cockroaches were already there. You just made everyone see them." He handed her a small box wrapped in gold paper. "Merry Christmas," he said. Maya opened it. Inside was a simple silver key on a chain. "What is this?" "It's a key to the new office," Darius said. "What office?" "The Maya Sterling Foundation." Darius smiled. "I didn't just ask for a scholarship. I set up a foundation. We're going to fund legal defense for people who get profiled in airports, stores, and schools. We're going to sue companies that do this until they change, and I want you to run the Youth Advisory Board." Maya touched the cool silver key. She thought about the tears she had shed in that holding room. She thought about the fear, and then she thought about the power she had now to make sure no one else felt that way. "I'll do it," she said. "Good," Darius said. "But first, I think we have some skiing to do." The story seemed over. The bad guys were punished. The good guys won. But as they headed out to the slopes, Darius's phone buzzed one last time. It was a text from an unknown number. "You think you've won, Sterling, but you just made an enemy of the Union. Caldwell has friends. Watch your back." Darius looked at the text. He didn't tell Maya. He simply deleted it and smiled. Let them come. He was ready. The threat from the unknown number hadn't been an idle boast. It was the last gasp of a dying beast. 3 months after the Christmas Eve incident, the Empire struck back. But it wasn't with violence. It was with mud. A series of anonymous articles began popping up on fringe news sites. They claimed Maya Sterling had a history of behavioral issues at her boarding school. They claimed Darius Sterling had manipulated the stock market to acquire Aerolux shares cheaply. It was a smear campaign designed to discredit the victims and paint Director Caldwell as a martyr of cancel culture. Caldwell, desperate and broke, had pooled his remaining resources to hire a shady crisis management firm. He was betting everything on forcing Darius into a settlement to make the bad press go away. He bet wrong. Darius Sterling didn't settle. He escalated. On a rainy Tuesday in March, Darius sat in a deposition room in Manhattan. Across the table sat Caldwell, looking thinner and far less arrogant than he had in his corporate photos. Beside him was a sleek, expensive lawyer. "Mr. Sterling," Caldwell's lawyer began, We intend to prove that your public statements destroyed my client's reputation and future earnings. We are seeking $50 million in damages." Darius didn't even look up from his notepad. He simply slid a single file folder across the polished mahogany table. "You can seek whatever you want," Darius said calmly. "But before you proceed, you should look at that." Caldwell frowned and opened the folder. As he read, his face went from pale to grey. It wasn't just the emails about Beatrice Gower. It was financial records. During the forensic audit Darius had ordered, after buying the majority stake in Aerolux, his team had found something else. Caldwell hadn't just been covering up racism, he had been covering up embezzlement. For 5 years, Caldwell had been approving renovation contracts for airport lounges, contracts awarded to a construction company owned by his brother-in-law. Millions of dollars of airline money had been funneled out, while the lounges remained largely untouched. "This is," Caldwell's lawyer stammered, reading the bank transfers. "Where did you get this?" "I own the company now," Darius said, his voice cold as ice. "I own the servers. I own the hard drives. And I own the evidence." Darius leaned forward. "The FBI is currently executing a search warrant at your home, Mr. Caldwell, and your brother-in-law just cut a deal 5 minutes ago. He's testifying against you to save himself." Caldwell slumped back in his chair, the fight leaving his body instantly. The smear campaign, the lawsuit, the threats, it all evaporated in the face of federal prison time. "I'll drop the lawsuit," Caldwell whispered. "You certainly will." Darius stood up, buttoning his jacket. "You're going to prison, Caldwell, not because you were mean to my daughter, though that was your first mistake. You're going to prison because you thought you were untouchable. You thought the rules didn't apply to you." Darius walked out of the room, leaving Caldwell to the sound of sirens approaching outside. The karma wasn't just hard, it was absolute, the sentencing of Beatrice Gower. 2 weeks later, the final loose end was tied. Beatrice Gower stood in the Queens County Criminal Court. She had pleaded guilty to unlawful imprisonment in the 2nd degree to avoid a trial she knew she would lose. She stood before Judge Harrison, a stern woman who had no patience for theatrics. Beatrice cried, of course. She gave a statement about how she was stressed, how it was a misunderstanding, how she had learned her lesson. Judge Harrison wasn't moved. "Ms. Gower," the judge said, peering over her glasses, "you held a 17-year-old girl in a locked room without cause. You denied her contact with her parents. You abused the authority given to you by your employer to humiliate a child. And you did it because you profiled her." The courtroom was silent. Maya sat in the front row, holding her father's hand. She wasn't afraid anymore. She looked at Beatrice, really looked at her, and saw not a monster, but a small, sad woman who had let hate rot her from the inside out. "Probation is insufficient," Judge Harrison ruled. "To deter others from abusing positions of power, I am sentencing you to 6 months in a correctional facility, followed by 3 years of probation. You are also permanently barred from employment in the transportation security sector." The gavel banged. It sounded like a door closing on the past. As Beatrice was led away in handcuffs, she looked back. Her eyes met Maya's. There was no anger left in them, only regret. Maya didn't smile. She just nodded, acknowledging the justice, and turned away. 1 year later, the return Christmas Eve again, JFK Airport. The snow was falling just as it had the year before, dusting the wings of the planes in silver. Maya Sterling walked through the sliding doors of Terminal 4. She wasn't wearing sweatpants this time. She was wearing a sharp blazer and jeans, carrying a clipboard. She wasn't just a passenger, she was on a site visit. The prestige first-class lounge was gone. In its place was the newly renovated Aerolux Global Lounge. The frosted glass was replaced with clear, welcoming panels. But the biggest change wasn't the architecture. It was the people. At the front desk, a young man with dreadlocks was checking in a businessman. Next to him, a woman in a hijab was helping a family with their stroller. The staff was diverse, smiling and relaxed. The culture of fear that Caldwell and Beatrice had cultivated was gone, scrubbed away by the new training programs and the zero-tolerance policy for bias, not for attire. Maya walked up to the scanner. A new supervisor was there, a woman named Sarah who had been promoted after the purge of the old guard. "Good afternoon, Ms. Sterling." Sarah smiled warmly. "Your dad is already inside. He's reviewing the scholarship applications." "Thanks, Sarah." Maya smiled back. She walked into the lounge. Darius was sitting by the window, a stack of files in front of him. He looked up and beamed. "There she is," he said, "the director of the youth board." Maya sat down. "It feels different." "It is different," Darius said. "We made it different." He slid a paper across the table. It was the annual report for the Maya Sterling Foundation. In just 1 year, they had funded legal defense for 25 cases of profiling. They had awarded 10 full scholarships to minority pilots. They had forced 3 other major airlines to overhaul their security protocols. "We didn't just win a lawsuit, Maya," Darius said softly. "We changed the industry." Maya looked out the window at the tarmac. She thought about the girl she was a year ago, scared, small, waiting for her dad to save her. She wasn't that girl anymore. She was the girl who saved herself, and then decided to save everyone else. She pulled out her phone. The case with the sunflower sticker was still there. She opened her camera and took a selfie with her dad, the busy, diverse, happy lounge in the background. She posted it to Instagram with a simple caption, "They tried to lock me out, so we bought the building and opened the doors. Merry Christmas." It wasn't just a story about a bad flight. It was a story about power. The power people try to use over you, and the power you find within yourself to take it back. The flight to Aspen was boarding. Maya stood up, grabbed her bag, and walked toward the gate. No one stopped her. No one questioned her right to be there. She walked with her head high, the sound of her boots clicking on the floor like the steady beat of a victory march. And that is the story of how one act of prejudice brought down an entire corrupt empire. Maya and Darius proved that while money is powerful, the truth is unstoppable. Beatrice Gower and Director Caldwell thought they could judge people by their appearance, but they learned the hard way that you never know who you're messing with until it's too late. The karma they faced wasn't just bad luck. It was the direct consequence of their own arrogance. I hope this story reminds you that standing up for yourself, even when you're scared, can change the world. If you enjoyed this story of justice served cold, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss a new story. And tell me in the comments, have you ever been judged by your appearance? Let's talk about it. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.